everyone, and welcome to the February 7th, 2023 regular school board meeting. Can you please stand for the pledge? Megan, would you lead us in the pledge again?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, I'll turn it over to Mr. Bystrek for his superintendent's report.
All right, great. Thanks, everyone. Good evening and welcome to those viewing at home and that's folks here tonight. Thanks for being with us. So just a few things I wanted to point out. If you drove here tonight or came along Orchard Park Road, you noticed the beacons that we have outside are now flashing, which is fantastic. I want to thank Mr. Farr for being kind of our conduit to the New York State Department of Transportation and helping to get those up. Just an added layer of safety for us. So basically when you're coming, they're kind of working on the time frames now. They don't like to have them flashing all day long because they say people kind of become sort of numb to them. So they're kind of still working on the time frames as to when they're going to be flashing for us. So just happy to have an added layer of safety. Also just, I know Ellen Akala, our community relations coordinator, is working on, she's just putting the finishing touches. She created a really nice brochure for our top 10 seniors from each building and it looks fantastic. So looking forward to seeing that come out soon. Some great stuff in there. Just a couple of things too. I know I kind of included this in some communications, but the electric bus mandate, I just break it out into kind of 3 different areas that we need to be considering here too. And I did have some conversation with board members about this, but I think it's by 2020, and Mr. Thiel, correct me if I'm wrong on this date. It's either I think it's 2027 that we have to start phasing in electric buses. Is that the mandate or is it 2029? 2029, okay, so we have to start phasing them in by 2035 where our fleet is supposed to be fully electric. So I mean that's how the law currently stands right now. We have begun to take some steps. Will Thiel and I took a trip out to Lakeshore a few weeks back because they have an electric bus that they've been driving. They're actually very happy with it. It is extremely quiet. It's like a golf cart on wheel. It's like a golf cart but much larger than your average golf cart. Couple of things though that we are doing right now just to try to be proactive is we are working to try to get an audit. So you really have to consider the power grid, the cost obviously and the space for the buses. They are about 6 feet longer on average. There's some other costs associated with them as well. We may likely have to get different lifts in the bus garage to be able to, because they're longer because of the battery, to be able to work on them. They also require some additional space, not just because of the length, but because of the charging stations. One charger does two buses. The charging stations aren't huge, but they're not small either. And our current facilities probably wouldn't accommodate completely. So the power grid is probably one of the bigger conversations that we really need to be able to look into. The power company, before they engage in any real dialogue with us about this, though, wants us to look into what we have to. Basically, it's a study that would be done by NYSERDA. It's in New York State. I'm blanking on the analogy here too, but it's like electric, something that's basically it's a power. It looks at the environmental impact, including electricity and the needs that you'd have to be able to power these buses and charge these buses. So ultimately, we'd have to have a study done by them. The study itself can be a little costly itself, but most of it's aidable. I think the study is about $100,000, and we probably get about 80% of it back in aid over the next couple of years, but to basically assess what our power needs would be in order to be able to fully charge these buses. So, I mean, we can really get into the weeds, and I'm happy to answer any questions to the extent that I can right now. I just wanted everybody just to be aware that this is something, it's currently legislation. I wouldn't be surprised if possibly there were some adjustments made to the timelines that they had. I think they're a little ambitious, but we are taking some steps to ensure that we'll be in compliance with the mandate. So the buses are very costly, as are the charging stations as well. So, but we're all in the same soup with every other school district in New York State. So we'll figure this out. So, any questions on the electric buses? They do play music under 20 miles per hour because they're so quiet. That's a mandate. So it kind of sounds like something from Close Encounters of the Third Kind playing outside the bus when they're driving about 10 miles per hour down the road. So I thought that was nice. Folks in Lakeshore refer to it as the mothership. The other thing I just wanted to mention too, at our last board meeting, which seems like forever ago, but we had some conversation about trying to increase the capacity of our folks to have their AED and like CPR and first aid training. So we've had a number of meetings since that time. Jackie Fowler's been kind of spearheading that, working with our athletic director, Marissa Falcaro, and Stephanie Wright from Community Education to see where we might have some opportunities. So we've also been working with Mike Ryback, one of our school resource officers, who also does the training too. So the next staff development day, for instance, we were looking at kind of some of the numbers. You don't want to just assume that everybody's capable, honestly, of being able to do some of the CPR and even the first aid for that matter. Mike's has a lot of experience with this, so he actually does an awareness class, and he can do it for large numbers of people. If you're doing a full CPR and first aid, it's about 10 people, maybe 12 people for about a 2.5 to 3 hour class. We thought we would start at least we're looking kind of by groups that we have. So we're looking at a couple of our groups like transportation workers, food service workers, which he can actually have in kind of like an auditorium style where you might have 80 people, 90 people or something like that, and he can spend, a couple hours with each of these groups. And it's just examples that we're looking at right now and planning for, to be able to show people like hands-on CPR, first aid, showing people to create a sense of awareness. So that's one of the things that we're looking at right now. We're also, we looked at where some of these things are taught in our current curriculum and how we can, to our students, and how we can increase capacity there as well. So for instance, all students in the high schools, by our normal curriculum, have a couple of opportunities between 9th and 12th grade to get hands-on CPR. So Marissa had actually pushed out some information and resources to the health teachers as well, who are also interested in being able to teach that. And I think, honestly, we're looking at possibly teaching some of these things to kids potentially as young as in like 5th grade. Mike Ryback is reaching out to his contacts, his trainers right now, to see just how young you can go with some of these things and what might be a developmentally appropriate approach to being able to educate kids on things like hands-on CPR or hands-only CPR or training for first aid and AED and things like that. So. There's a few things in the work, I guess. I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware this is something we're looking at, trying to create more opportunities. We have about 1,200 employees, so to get everybody trained, there's quite a, logistically speaking, there's a lot there, but we do have some opportunities between staff development days and even times over breaks and over the summer to be able to get at some of our folks that are 12-month staff that are here all the time, that we can say, today we're going to spend on CPR and first aid training. So any questions on any of that?
Do we have AED machines in every building?
We're required to by law.
Okay.
Yeah, we're required to. And we're actually looking to add some outside by our stadiums. That's not required, but we are looking at that. Marissa's investigating that right now. Interestingly, just like a lot of other things, there's a backlog on the pads for the there's a shortage nationwide, and the batteries as well. So, some of ours are starting to get near that end of life period. So we're just, we've back in September, I think we ordered some through BOCES. But it's one of those things too that we even said, even just at this building faculty meeting, to say, okay, folks, we're all going to stand up and walk down and take a look to see where the AED is in the building. Marissa and Stephanie and Jackie are working on researching some additional signage that we might be able to put in all of our classrooms, just to really direct people, but also just some bullet points. This is what you do in this situation. Kind of like you see those choking signs. There's other signage that exists out there that could be very beneficial to people where there to be an emergency. So, other questions?
Well, I'm not going to probably put you on the spot per se, but where is the one in this building located?
There's actually one downstairs. I can't say exactly where it is, which is exactly the case in point. There's signs.
I'm not doing it to put you on the spot.
Yeah, no, I know.
I would have no idea where to get one.
Yeah. You walk through the buildings every day. I was at West Senior the other day, and I had said to Marissa, I said, geez, I wonder where the AED is in this building. It's a massive building. It was right behind me, ironically, but that's why we said, take people on a faculty meeting and just say, let's get up and walk and take a look at it. You walk by it every day, it becomes, I know where it is at West
Should
Middle.
be located by the gym.
Yeah, it absolutely should be, yeah.
They're usually within a moment's proximity from the gym,
You think Joe knows?
in any building.
Don't put him on the spot. I know where West Middle's is, and it is right by the gym in the main foyer there.
By design, that's where they go.
So, and we do have portable ones too that we take to sporting events as well. So if you're going off site to like the soccer complex or something like that, they're required to take them.
Who brings them, the coach?
Yeah, yes, the coach brings them. So, and we're looking to honestly get some more of them as well. Right now they're required to take them, but that can be limiting to some extent as well. So. Any other questions? That's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you. All right, I just wanted to give a brief board president report. I wanted to make sure I gave an update to the community regarding our redistricting process and let everyone know that although we are in February, we are not ready to hear any recommendations or vote on any changes. The core team is still working, and our next meeting is February 16th, and we will be sure to keep the public abreast of any important updates. I was able to sit in on a committee meeting with various stakeholders from the district who are working to change our vision statement. So from what I understand, our vision statement is decades old. I don't think we have an exact number, and may need some modernizing. I was happy to witness some very thoughtful conversation regarding who we are as a district and what we value, and I look forward to hearing more about this, and I'm sure the community will as well. During the month of February, our board will conduct a self-evaluation. The board evaluation process is an opportunity for us to reflect upon our role as board members and to examine our board effectiveness. If completed with careful consideration, these evaluations help boards identify changes needed today to effectively plan for our district in the future. Although we are under no legal obligation to conduct a board self-eval, I found it encouraging that our board partakes in this and has also gone so far as to put it into policy. So I look forward to seeing everyone's feedback and having conversations on how we can do better and grow together as a board. And I appreciate each one of you for putting your time into this. So I look forward to seeing those. That's end of this week, Sunday. February 12th is the end date. All right, that's it for me. I'm going to pass it over to our assistant superintendents. All right. Who wants to go first? Is Will coming up too, or is it just? No, okay. All right, Mrs. Persico, would you like to go first? Okay. This one as well. All right.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'll be back again for presentation in a little bit, but just a few items to point out. Mr. Bystrack and myself got a very exciting email, I think it was sometime last week, from Nancy Hampton from the New York State Council on Children and Families, who was instrumental in helping us to secure our grant for On My Way to K. They want to highlight our district and one other from the state to have a production basically made where they're interviewing several people from around the district who participated in making that event a reality. So we're looking forward to doing that. It's West Seneca and Seneca Falls. So as Matt said, no chance they're going to mess that up. But we're excited to be able to highlight that. I think it was a great opportunity for our community, and now the whole state will get to see all the good that came from that event. There are a variety of committees happening still. Curriculum Showcase is getting closer and closer. We are working to develop a flyer to advertise the event, also working with Scott Firkins and Elena to prepare a survey to put out to our families so that we can gauge interest and numbers of people that we can expect that evening over at West Senior. It will kick off with lacrosse games, JV and varsity for our boys teams, and we're looking forward to the whole event where we're showcasing all the good work and things that are happening in our classrooms and around our schools across the district. We are in preparation for Day to Day, which is tomorrow afternoon, for all of our district staff, teachers, instructional staff, and then also we are working to finalize some details for our March 15th final superintendent conference day. We really were looking closely at the feedback that we gathered from our stakeholders about the previous superintendent conference day. And so we are blocking out half of a day so that teachers can work with their colleagues in like departments and or grade levels where they're learning, and then also having time to apply that learning together as a group. So we're really excited about the work that we are doing there. In addition, we will have our teachers engaging in culturally responsive and sustaining education session across the district. They will be working with Will Green, who has been here before and previously in November, and our feedback from the survey on his presentations was overwhelmingly positive as well. So we are looking to do some data diving around the school climate survey data that I will go over with you shortly. And that seems to be the way the day is shaping up. So super excited about all of that. And that's it for me for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
right, Dr. Cervoni. Oh, and Mrs. Fowler, you're all ready. Just come up together.
Tony suggested we come together.
I like it.
Go ahead, John.
Good evening. I will go before Dr. Cervoni. He nicely let me go ahead of him. Just want to provide a little bit of a follow-up and an update that I shared at the January meeting where we were working with Dr. Marcus Tomir from Canisius in regards to supporting their grant for an after-school program targeting social skills. So that is off the ground thanks to Stephanie Wright and her team. It is going to be beginning at the end of the month, and looking forward to that opportunity right here through our community ed for students to be able to participate in that program. It's targeting students with autism and, like I said, focusing on social skill intervention. And again, thank you to Stephanie and her team for really working closely with Dr. Tomir to get that rolling. The next item I just want to share is that our parent information series, that second part, is underway. This is an online video kind of webinar type approach. We decided to do this based on some feedback that we received early on in our survey. Part one is a video that's already out on the web that focuses on social emotional development in children and focusing on student strengths. Part two will be out later this week, and that will also continue the conversation about discussing children's strengths, characteristics, character traits, and just some conversation starters with children. And then part three will be coming soon, and that's about positive praise and what parents can do at home to enhance children's social and emotional strengths. Our final person in our series is Dr. Dave Meichenbaum from the Summit Educational Resource Center, and he will be speaking in April about managing anxiety, working with your children and helping them to manage anxiety. That one will be in person, but there'll be more information to come as well. Also, just want to highlight that our district clothes closet continues to be open on a regular basis at Ebenezer. It is open the evening of February 15th from 5 to 7. But again, if anyone who's either watching or anyone that you can connect with, just let them know that we certainly can make appointments for any time that is convenient for families, and we would just do that through our district social worker, Melissa Brindamore. So just want to keep getting that resource out to our community.
Yeah, thank you.
So, thank you.
Was able to visit that clothes closet recently. It's pretty awesome. Great work to that team. Good evening. Just a few brief updates. Do look forward to talking with you tonight about our current state of affairs with staffing. It is a busy time in human resources and in my world, building up into these next couple weeks and months as we prepare and plan for our budget and our upcoming school year as it relates to our staffing and our programming. After a conversation with our superintendent, I reached out to a group of local colleges recently about finding ways in which we can push into their classrooms or their career centers to showcase and illustrate our programming, our job opportunities, and our interest in being able to diversify our staff and just showcase that we're a great place to work. So got some feedback from a few colleges already, and we'll update the board as I pursue some different opportunities. One already that came forward was a Resume Wednesday, where they have companies and school districts that set up a table, can review resumes, and also share information about their company or district. So really excited about that. We have some great partnerships already, but just wanted to continue to reach out. And I was at a recent presentation regionally where a bunch of college and university representatives were there. So use that list of emails and try to do a cold call email to all of them. And so it was well received. In my board updates, I've been sharing some trainings that have been taking place, and one is around a school front program that I know I've talked to you a lot about. We've been implementing this for over a year. School front is a pretty vast program, online program that has several modules to it. We are using it as our recruitment platform initially, and then on the district side, we will be moving towards full digital onboarding with our employees, and we'll be creating digital personnel folders. In addition, there will be a lot of workflow things that we'll be able to digitize. For example, there are countless forms that employees have to fill out, salary notifications that they have to do annually, health healthcare changes, W-2 changes, or just, let's say, a personal day request. All of those now are done by paper, they're printed in-house, they're in triplicate, they have to be signed, go to the principal, come to my office, sign, and then go to the business office, et cetera. This will all be moved towards electronically, where people can have access to the forms on their dashboard, fill them out electronically, and they start processing through the district. So should create a great deal of efficiency. It is widely used across the state. It is becoming more popular in Western New York. I would say we are one of the districts leading the charge in that regionally, but through colleagues that I spoke with across the state that are fully implementing, they absolutely love it. So looking forward to that, and if you have more questions or if just something you're interested in, I'd be happy to talk with you more about that. Also trained our administrators, our directors, and assistant principals on their new evaluation system, as well as our assistant superintendents using Super Eval, which I know you're familiar with. We've been talking about what that training happened in the last couple of weeks, and we have an abbreviated trial run, if you would, not trial run, but a shortened run for this school year. I'm looking forward to this platform. It's extremely user-friendly, it's goal-oriented, and it creates opportunities for the employee to really self-reflect and be able to illustrate and showcase how they've been working towards their goals and within their positions. So looking forward to that as well, and we will be transitioning that. My next steps is to roll that out to some of our other managers and department heads in the district.
Great.
Any questions for me?
No?
All right, thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right. All right, we are going to, if you don't mind, board members, we're just going to approve the consent agenda before we do the presentations, if that's okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Again, I skipped you. You're my favorite. You're my favorite person. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm going to.
You're okay.
Introduce, for our student representatives report, we have Megan from West Senior.
Good evening. So the first thing I wanted to touch on this evening was our musical Mean Girls is their first show is tomorrow night, and it is going on through Saturday. The cast has worked, and Pitt and everyone involved has worked very hard to put that on, so they're very excited. They did the middle school show today, so they're very excited to put that on. Basketball, both boys and girls, their playoffs are starting in about 2.5 weeks, and our National Honor Society does a carnation sale during the week of Valentine's Day, and so you can buy those in the morning before school and during lunches. And the members of National Honor Society are working it. Our boys combined district team swim championships are happening. The boys, I believe, have class championships in the coming week. One thing I've heard from students is the rumor about Regents Week, whether it is being transitioned to midterms or normal classes. People have been talking about that at my school, so I didn't know if there was any information on that. And as well as track sectionals are next weekend.
Thank you, Megan. Does anyone want to take Megan's question?
I can jump in on that, yeah. So right now that students, initially it was something that we were looking at for midterms. They were using it for data analysis, Regents Week. We are having conversations about the possibility. It's true. I mean, it's obviously it's passed for this year, but we are having conversations about how we might be able to better utilize that week in the future and maybe maximize some more instructional time. So I can't say exactly what that looks like right now, but the rumors are true that is a discussion right now. So I will tell you more to come on that. So we just want to make sure we're squeezing every last bit out of every minute you guys are available to us. So.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now I was going to ask if the board wouldn't mind, since we have some personnel here with a little baby, we could approve our personnel appointments and then have our presentations afterwards, if that's okay with everybody. Okay. All right, so we're going to skip presentations and we are going to go to 4. Actually, I skipped public comment too. I am not on my game today.
It's okay.
Is there anybody who would like to address the board for public comment before I read my little thing? You have a question? Okay, well then let me do my little spiel. 1 second. So, Each speaker is given 3 minutes with a total allotted time to last no more than 30 minutes. I don't expect that, so when called, please step up to the podium and state your name and address, and somebody will get back to you. Leave your name with the district
It's
clerk.
on the agenda, right? We're doing the agenda, or is it together?
It's all together now.
Okay. All right, well then, I
This is where she has like a thick book.
have, okay, so, my name is Jen. I live at 47 Manhasset Street. And my first question is on, K, combining sports. I'm okay with all the combining because of the participation between schools, but how are you going to how is the modified cheerleading being handled between both schools if they're combining? If there's 2 teams for football and for basketball, are they going to be separate days that these girls are going to be cheerleading for if they're going to participate in the football games? That's my one question. And then Matt, about the buses, do you know how the buses handle in the freezing cold?
You mean the electric buses, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it does have an impact on the battery life, so I think the charging, you just have to be very cognizant of that. So I couldn't give you, actually, I'm answering the question, I said we were going to wait on that. So,
Right. That's okay.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
It's okay.
I think the answer is yes, there is an impact.
Okay, but I'm just concerned about the cheerleaders for the modified sports, so maybe we can figure out, or if you have something.
Oh, I absolutely can have some.
Yeah.
I'll ask Mrs. Falcaro Doherty to get back to you on that. She
Okay.
can give you specifics.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Jen. If you're concerned about the electric buses, reach out to your local legislator. Send them an email.
They're the ones that do it.
Tell them
Okay.
we're worried too.
Okay, so now we are going to move to consent agenda. I apologize.
Don't apologize.
All right, so before I start with the consent agenda, is there anyone who would like anything removed from the consent agenda? Yes, Jody.
8A,
8A. Okay, so we actually removed that, so it is actually not part of the consent agenda anymore. So that will be voted on separately. Okay, that's it? Okay, thank you. All right then, so if everyone had a chance to look over the agenda, we are going to do 5, all of 6, all of 7, we're skipping 8, and going to 9, which is the reports, the minutes, and the Committee of Special Education. So may I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda with everything except for 8.
Thank you, Ed. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Jody seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Okay, passes 6-0. I mean 7-0. All right, so now we will do 8A. May I have a motion to accept 8A, certified appointments?
I'll make a motion.
Diane makes a motion. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Ed seconds. Any discussion? Yeah.
Certification.
Okay. Certification noted. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Jody?
Opposed.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you. No problem. Passes 6-1. All right, now we are moving on to 10. So if someone will give me a motion, I would like to approve all of 10, and I will give you time to look over it. Ed, we give you the official clerk pro tem for the year.
I got,
So congratulations if it gets approved.
I
We'll
gave
see.
you my checking account number, right?
Good luck. Now, were you going to introduce some people?
I did. Oh, Dr. Cervoni.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Cervoni, while we're looking over 10, I'm off my game today. Forgive me,
The
people.
earthquake really just kind of threw us all off.
Dr. Cervoni would like to welcome a new staff member, so.
The week started off unusual this week, for sure, with the earthquake. So not a new staff member, but we do have someone here joining us who just was voted on and approved for tenure. Julia Pinjatori. Julia, stand up. She has two very well-behaved children back there, I will say. Julia,
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Julie, do you want to introduce who's here with you?
Sure. This is my husband, John, who obviously also works for the town of West Seneca. And I have my 2-year-old Rocco. Hi. Hi, Rocco. And I have our 8-month-old, who turned 8 months old today, Francesca.
Oh, congratulations. Thank you. Welcome to our district. Thank you.
Congratulations. Julia was one of my students, believe it or not, when I was principal at East. And she is a special education teacher at Allendale, works with some of our neediest students. We thank you for all your work. She started with us at East Middle for a short time before she went to Allendale. And Dr. Quinn is sorry she couldn't be here, but congratulations and well-deserved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. I'm glad we weren't too loud.
I'd like to comment on D if I could, please.
Oh, sure. Sure. Do you want me to separate it or just comment?
No, that's all right. I just want to comment. Marion Nixon was a wonderful addition to our school district for a long time, and she taught, of course, at Winchester, and she just did a beautiful job. And I just want to comment that it's nice that this was set up in her memory of scholarship, because she certainly loved the district and really had an influence on a lot of kids.
She was a teacher in the
Music.
district? A music
Yeah.
teacher?
Mhm.
How
Yeah.
wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw the amount and I was really
And
touched.
that's quite a sizable amount.
Yeah, what a great legacy.
Yeah.
And what a great way to share your legacy with others. It's just
We're talking about 10D,
Astounding, really.
in case anyone's curious.
beautiful.
So yeah, does anyone else have anything they want pulled off of 10 to vote on separately? Or can we do it all together? Okay. All right, may I have a motion to accept 10A through 10S?
I'll make a motion.
Molly motions,
I'll
Dan
second.
second, Jan second. Is there any discussion? Nope. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Nope, passes 7-0. Okay, so we'll go back now to our presentations. 3A, which is the budget presentation. Mr. Thiel, would you like to come up? Thank you for waiting.
Disappointed Rocco left to continue on here.
I'm a little disappointed too, he left. I wanted him to sit on my lap.
Need a place for water.
All right, so getting started with really our first presentation on the 2024 budget. The slides that are bolded are in your presentation tonight. We'll just run through a couple of things that are already in place. We've distributed in December to the buildings the allocations on a per student basis for supplies and equipment and those sorts of materials. We've been meeting very regularly with department heads and building principals, hoping to get around to everybody at least once, if not twice. Very late this year, as opposed to past years, we received a state aid outline by the governor that came out last week, and it delayed the presentation being posted because it's really the sole core of this presentation tonight. We're gathering our tax cap calculation data, meeting with our financial advisor, establishing our debt service for next year, and the governor's budget also plays into that. And then that's for tonight's presentation, and then the first draft of the overall appropriations budget will appear in March, final in April, and adoption in April. Budget hearing and vote in May, and we're off to 2024. Seems like only yesterday it was 2023. We presented a fund balance plan to the board back in December, along with the budget calendar that was approved. And we carried over our goals for working with the pandemic-related funding, keep the class size sections low, build out AIS, success labs, technology staff, SEL staff, a lot of the issues in our buildings that our principals and leadership are dealing with. Just try to give extra support, highly qualified people standing in front of students, serving their needs. On the operational side, we work closely with representatives of all those departments there, trying to free up resources and get them deployed to catch us up a little bit in some cases, to get us ahead in others, and to try to fill needs and be able to service the students. That's sort of the backbone of the district there, and unless we pay attention to that, it's really hard to hang a full structure of educational programs on the district. I usually start by looking at what we thought we were going to get for state aid and what we are actually getting. The governor's budget approved last April indicated we would get $54.8 million. That's what we budgeted. Based on current operating statistics, we're due to get $54.5 million, so down about $300,000. That's not an unusual occurrence. State aid budgets are based on projected data from a prior year budget, and then we file our annual filings based on our audit called the ST3. It goes through a complicated sausage-making exercise, and out the other end comes $54.5 million instead of $54.8 million, and I guarantee you by next month it'll be a different number. It moves literally every single month. So we track that, we track our collections, and we make sure that we can meet our budget needs inside of that. So that's all happening in this current year's budget. The governor announced just last week her aid proposal, which now moves to the legislative process. It's generous, to say the least, but not over the top. Let's put a little context to this. The district has been without its contractual financial aid in terms of foundation aid for a very long time. The state established foundation aid many years ago and then restricted the formula and held back money on school districts. There's been a move in the last 3 years towards full funding. This is the impact of that move, last year's increase and this year's increase. So the culmination was, I think it was originally planned to be a 3-year phase-in, and they've accelerated it by 1 year to that's why you see the big jump this year. It's helpful this year because we're all facing the end of the Carissa and ARP funding. ARP runs 1 more year to 2024. Carissa expires this September, so effectively for us this June. All our expenses in Carissa will be realized. So we have a slide later in the presentation about that. But you can see that's a large impact in the foundation aid area. Again, a catch-up for monies we should have received over the years. And only one set aside to this point, and that's for high-impact tutoring, which is very broadly defined right now in the budget proposal as a focus on students grades 3 through 8 who are either below New York State assessment standards and or in risk of falling below New York State assessment standards. Bottom line is it gives us an opportunity to build out additional instructional programming for the next year. I'm told that this set-aside will only last for 1 year. So if there are areas of need that we determine, be it literacy, reading, whatever, we can surge people into that, meet this need, and move the whole district forward. So we look to move it forward organically the way we would normally plan, just have to put certain people in certain categories as we go. I would say if I was concerned about one number on the board, it would be the BOCES aid number. It shows at $5 million versus 3.8. The original budget for this past year was 4.1. So you can see that's where I think that there's probably some risk in the proposal. But we'll see as we go forward. Any questions about what the governor proposed?
Yeah, Will, under the foundation aid, when you're looking at the current estimate for January 23 on the 27th. The second line there, we're 2.7 million, and it jumps up to 7.7 million. What's the change in those numbers? Like what's driving that change?
The 46 versus the 38.5? The $46 million proposal for 2024 is the governor's proposal. That's just the aid that she's allocated our district based on the foundation
And
aid.
that's getting back to the right sizing of the foundation aid?
That's getting back to the catch-up.
And then the 7.7 underneath that?
That's just the math, the
The
difference
increase
between the
from
46
38?
and the 35.
Okay,
38.
thank you.
So you can see that the last 2 years have been an over-average
A
growth.
20% jump?
Yeah, it's a 20%
Okay.
jump. Again, the reasons are historical, plus we have the funding cliff, if you will, for the current pandemic programs facing districts over the next 12 months or so. This is the working tax cap calculation number. The $66.9 million top number is our current property tax levy. The state has issued through the Office of the State Comptroller, it's called the tax-based growth factor. So they look around the districts in the entire state, each one gets assigned a tax-based growth factor. Ours is a little lower than some others, it's not growing as fast as some other districts, but that actually inflates the amount of money that we're able to put into the tax levy. Then when you have to reduce it by the pilots in the capital exclusion, that's the amount of money that goes towards debt service. And so we end up with a new base of about 64.7. The 2% applies to that. I know everybody wants to have, it's a 2% tax cap. The one thing it's never been is a 2% tax cap. It's always been more or less depending on all these other factors. We have current year pilots receivable. We're increasing our pilot revenue next year, so they subtract, we get to add that back on top. And the capacity tax exclusion, right now, we're looking at a very consistent number year to year, managing our debt service the way the 2018 capital project was sold to the public. So it ends up with a 2.53% preliminarily. I've since run additional numbers based on analyzing the state aids, and it looks like it'll trend towards 2.4. So when we file our tax cap, I'll let the board know at the end of the month. We will file it with the designation that we will not be exceeding the tax cap. Obviously, given the state aid situation, that's not required. And the number there also compares it to last year. So 2.25 last year, 2.53 in the rough this year, further refined after a week's more work is 2.43. So we're headed in that general direction. Any questions on the tax cap? I think we have to keep in mind at all times, and we discuss this often at our finance and budget meetings, is the amount of money we're currently investing through the federal pandemic grants. This is a repeat of a slide that was presented, I believe, back in November. 57 positions totaling $3.4 million in salary. There is a retirement or two. Bless you. There is a retirement or two under these grants, so that's why the spending payroll for 2024 in the grant does not move upwards that much. If we replaced or added positions to it, it would, obviously. And then all Carissa and our funding expires 9/30 of '24. So we have one more year to use these funds. Next year's usage will be somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 million to close out the $13 million we were given for pandemic aid response. So I view the state aid, foundation aid increase more as a down payment for our transition away from federal monies in the 2024 budget to a general funded budget in the 2024 without having to impact the taxpayer outside the normal constraints.
At that point, would it be wise to give a retirement incentive?
Is there a retirement
No, I mean, would that be the place to put one in?
This year, we've had 19 retirements, which is up. When we negotiated the teacher contract, we built in certain provisions that encourage our retiring at first availability, retiring giving us notice so we can make it part of our budget plan. There's conversions on 2 or 3 different levels of sick days that can fund teachers between whatever age they retire at for insurance purposes to the 65 and the Medicaid
Yeah,
and
because
that kind of coverage that
we're in a position with only 15 steps and it really gets tricky here.
our people get to the top step
Yeah,
quickly, more quickly than anybody else in Western New York.
I know that, yeah.
And we have a great deal of people at the top step. But this year, I think we had a lot of really good discussions surrounding retirement. We worked very hard to make sure that everybody was aware of what was built into the contract. That Dr. Cervoni has great relationships with the union and really made it known, went around and visited buildings. And I think, the 19 retirements has a significant impact. So that'll be built into what you see on the appropriation side. It gives us a certain degree of flexibility, and it begins to build additional capacity to absorb what you see on the screen now. There's certainly not the ability to just add this on top of what we already have without things happening inside of our current staff. So it was a good year for people coming forward with the retirements. Like I said, the unfortunate part of all that is you lose a lot of experience out of your system. And so financially, I may celebrate that, while people in the buildings may not. And I appreciate that because, some really good people, going to the sidelines. Just a first look at overall revenue, just with the tax cap number built in and the state aid number built in. You can see that the revenue is, at least at this point in the analysis, healthy in terms of where we ended up with the revenue from last year. Of course, it's not a budget till it's a budget, and we hope that the state delivers an on-time budget April 1st so we can solidify these numbers. What's next? Our appropriations budget, including all the items that are listed there, will be provided and presented in our early March board meeting. We'll know then where we stand versus the revenue side. The revenue side will continue to monitor, making sure that the state's on track, seeing what the proposals are. The different the Assembly and the Senate usually come up with some pretty different proposals, and I'll witness the electric bus proposal from last year. So we'll finalize and present to the state the tax cap calculation. Again, that's not a commitment. The only part of the commitment is we don't exceed the cap. The tax, what we file for taxes is a decision the board makes in August. If anybody has any questions or comments, I'll do my best, but that's the start. And we're working pretty much every day to pull together the rest for March, the tight time frame. Good?
Yep, I'm good.
Thank you.
Good. It's about all the voice I have on.
Thanks, Will.
All right. Mrs. Persico, if you'd like to come up and present the school climate survey. Hello again.
Okay, so the school climate survey that we give is through Linkit, and the survey format they use is from the United States Department of Education. The survey that we administer to our parents, our secondary students, and instructional staff have 3 domains: safety, environment, and engagement. And each domain has 3 topics. Safety focuses on the emotional and physical, bullying and substance abuse, emergency readiness and management. Environment focuses on physical and instructional environment, physical and mental health, and discipline. And engagement focuses on cultural and linguistic competence, relationships, and participation. So I have a few years' worth of data for you just to show some trends. And the first one we have up here is the high school student survey from the fall of 21-22. And in that particular administration, we had 1,329 students participate. The overall safety rating was a 2.7, environment was 2.6, and engagement is 2.9. So the mean is 2.5. Anything north of that is considered to have a positive perception of the climate characteristic that is being addressed in the survey, and anything south of that is something that has a negative or a strongly negative perception of that characteristic. So as you could see, in the fall of 21, our student perception was above. It was pretty positive. In the spring of that same school year, we had 852 students take the survey, so that's a dip in the number of participants. However, the overall safety was 2.7, environment was 2.6, and engagement was 2.9. So again, well north of the mean, so we have a positive overall student perception of the climate characteristics. This past fall, we had 1,290 students participate in the survey, so we went up quite a few students this past fall.
What was the number again?
1,290. And we had an overall safety rating of 2.6 for environment and 2.9 for engagement. So in general, our high school student survey data shows, and the 3 years are up here on the screen, shows a fairly consistent perception. Numbers of students dropped in the spring of 22, as I recently pointed out, but they did rebound this past fall. The students do have that positive perception, as I mentioned, of the climate characteristics that are outlined in this particular survey. Areas of note when looking at the results from the high school students is that positively, participation was one of the higher ranking domains and topics. Students feel included, part of the process, whether it's asking for their voice or there are plenty of activities and sports to become involved with, so they feel good about that. Negative perceptions were towards bullying, substance abuse, and physical environment. The middle school students in the fall of 21 had 1,059 students participate in that school climate survey. Overall, they rated safety topics as 2.9, environment as 2.8, and engagement as 3.0. In the spring of that same school year, we had 1,072 students participate in the survey with an overall safety rating of 2.8, an overall environment rating of 2.7, and engagement 2.9. So that showed a very minor dip of 0.1 in all 3 of those domains from the previous fall. In the fall of the 22 school year, we had 1,074 middle school students participate. And again, their overall safety rating was 2.9, environment was 2.8, and engagement 3.0. So they went right back up that 0.1 that they dipped down the previous spring in that administration. So overall, if you take those 3 administrations, middle school students also have a fairly consistent ranking of their climate characteristics. They have a very positive perception of what is outlined in the survey. So areas to note for our middle school students is that on the positive side, they feel 3.0 for participation. They feel very involved. They ranked cultural and linguistic competency as a 3.0 as well. And also substance abuse is a 3.0. And that's kind of a negative affect, if you will. So it's not necessarily always bad to have that negative perception, the way the questions are worded. So middle school students do not feel as though substance abuse is an issue. Whereas in the high school results, high school students felt that substance abuse was an issue. Now, substance abuse can be alcohol, drugs, vaping, e-cigarettes, so it's a variety of things. Under the negative things area to focus on are physical environment, which middle school students rated at 2.6 overall, and then mental health at 2.67. So those are two areas of note from the survey results from this past fall administration. Our parent survey, in the fall of 21, we had 281 parents participate in the school climate survey. They had an overall ranking of safety of 3.1, environment 2.9, and engagement at 3.0, for an average of 3.0, which is fairly positive perception. In the spring of that same academic school year, we had 274 parents participate, which was a very minor dip in the number of parents who took the survey. They rated the safety at 3.1, environment at 2.9, and engagement at 3.0 to have an average of 3.0, just like they did that previous fall. So same exact spread of ranking. This past fall, we had 246 parents participate in the survey. That is a minor dip, but I think you will note that it's a very small fraction of our parent population in the district. So one area of focus for us is to better advertise the survey opportunity and encourage more parents to participate. This past fall, however, we had an increase of the parent perception of our climate characteristics. We had an overall ranking of 3.2 in each of the three domains: safety, environment, and engagement. So over those three trends data sets, we have district parents who are quite consistent, and they are showing signs of growth regarding positive perception of the climate characteristics. Areas of note on the plus side, we have physical environment and the instructional environment as areas that parents perceive very positive, with a ranking of 3.33. The physical environment for parents was something that was positive. However, if you look at the student results, they have that as something, as an area to improve. So it's interesting that the different stakeholder groups had different perceptions of that domain. We also had an overall increase of 0.5 in the cultural competency and awareness, which I think is really great, that our parents are feeling as though we are responding to cultural differences in the district. And I think that is really attributed to some of the work we are doing around cultural and responsive sustaining education. On the negative side, we have parents who still feel bullying is an issue, 2.7. And physical health, 2.8. And while I say that's negative, it's still above and considered on the Likert scale there as a positive perception, although it's not as high as some of the other areas. In the fall of 21, we had 518 staff members participate in the school climate survey. Their ranking of safety was 3.2, environment was 3.0, and engagement 3.1. In the spring of that same school year, we had 448 instructional staff participate in the survey, which was a little bit of a decrease from the previous fall. They rated safety as 3.2 overall, environment 3.0, and engagement 3.1. So the exact same rankings as the previous fall. This past fall, we had 142 staff members only participate in the school climate survey. They rated safety at 3.2, environment at 3.0, and engagement at 3.2 for an average of 3.13, which was a slight increase, even though the numbers of people who participated were down. Overall, our staff results are extremely consistent despite fluctuation of participants. Our district staff have an overall positive perception of each of those domains and topics as outlined in the survey. Positive areas that are worthy of mentioning: emergency readiness and preparedness. Our staff feel as though we have that under good control with a ranking of 3.33. They also feel as though we are addressing bullying fairly well with a 3.3 ranking as well. So again, that's in contrast to what our students and some parents are saying regarding bullying. So that's an area for us to look at as an instructional staff. Why is there that delineation in perception? And then some of the negative things to know were the physical environment at a 2.9 and physical health at a 2.86. Again, that's fairly high. It's still a positive perception according to this survey, but of all of the domains and topics, those were the ones that were ranked a little bit lower for the overall results. I have emailed you user-friendly PDF of all 4 stakeholder surveys with all the domains, topics, and questions, where it's a little bit easier to read for you to take a look. When you'll see those PDF of the actual stakeholder survey results, you'll notice that you'll have a scale, green, red, and sometimes yellow. And the green, the darkest green, means that it's the most positive climate perception of that particular characteristic. 4.0 is close to the 4. The lighter green is still positive, but just not as positive as the dark green. The neutral perception is right there in the middle, 2.5, and then lighter red and darker red both indicate negative, and the most negative climate perception. So I think that there are also some negatively balanced questions where answering negatively is a good thing. For instance, if the question were, students at this school damage or destroy others' property, you would want them to disagree with that. So that would seem negative, but it's a positive thing that they don't view that as happening. So there is this key that I have shared with you as well to help translate some of those results or questions, if you will. But overall, I think that the results that we have are fairly consistent over the past 3 administrations. We will be doing this again in the spring, but between now and then, in May, we have the Superintendent Conference Day on March 15th, and all of our building leaders will be taking their staff through the results for their specific building, so they can take a deeper dive, and then what are some of the actionable things that we can do as a building to help address some of these things that came out lower ranked or really kind of raise a red flag that warrant our attention. This is part of our DSIP plan, where we are required under ESSA to administer these 2 twice-a-year surveys regarding school climate. I do think that it is a good practice that we are constantly looking at the feedback from our stakeholder groups and utilizing that feedback to help drive us and shape the decisions that we're making in the district. So I'm not sure if you have any questions about any of these particular topics or domains.
I have a question.
Sure.
So it's given to high school students and middle school students?
Yes.
Not elementary students?
Correct.
And high school and middle school parents? Not
All
elemen-
parents, all district parents.
All district parents?
All district instructional staff, but
Okay.
only secondary students, so
Okay.
middle and high school.
All right, thank you. That
You're
was my
welcome.
question.
So just the instructional staff? not
Yes.
The overall?
At this time,
Yeah.
correct.
Does anyone else have any questions?
I'm curious, so high school students, they respond to this, and will get, the building principals get the data. What do they then do with it?
So they will be digging deeper into their specific building data with their teaching staff on March 15th. So they're going to take a look at every single question from all 3 stakeholder groups that they had at the secondary, or if it's an elementary building, it's just the teachers and also the parents, and see what were some areas that we know, what resonates with us, where did we do really well, where are those positive highlights?
Yeah.
What do we do? Why are parents and staff perceiving these things as positive? How do we continue doing that? And then where are some places or areas of focus that kind of we ranked a little bit lower? So is it school climate? Is it physical environment? What about the physical environment? Let's talk about this as a staff. And then what can we do to help focus our attention on that specific domain and topic that maybe wasn't as high as we would like it to be?
Yeah, are there subgroups of students that meet to discuss these things after the data?
That could, Vince, that could potentially be something that one of the high schools does choose to do. They might say, let's go over this with our student government. It's really going to be up to each building and how they want to roll this out and apply. I think this is also an excellent data set for our PPS staff as well, our school counselors or social workers. Some of the areas that were coming up as needing focus or attention was bullying, was the mental health, was the physical
I think that attributes to
environment.
some of the lack of input that you get from people, because of the survey data, if you don't see outcomes and something actually occurring, we're digging deeper and we're digging deeper, but what happens? What is the outcome of this collection of data, and making that visible for people and feeling like, okay, your voice has been heard and here's the action that we're now taking.
Correct. So our first step is with our instructional staff, and then also the parent survey here, so we might be reviewing these with our PTAs or our PTO, and maybe we are putting on a community forum or a parent forum at our building that might address some of the areas that are perceived negative. How can we make improvements there? So I think those are building specific, because you might have one building that has an area of strength that the other building gets highlighted as an area that needs attention or focus. So it's really going to be building specific, but yet we need to make sure that we're carrying through, because it's nice that we give this, but then what are we going to do with it? So that will all be planned out on March 15th.
I have another, oh, sorry, go ahead, Jody.
Mr. Patrick, will you still be having the student cabinet meetings that you mentioned in one of your updates?
I think our first one is scheduled for right after the break. I want to say it's like the 20, I don't have the calendar.
Would you find that this is something appropriate to
Oh,
discuss
absolutely.
at those meetings with the students, to get the student discussion started?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think we could even employ a World Cafe technique, where you have very essential questions that are based on what you're seeing in the data, and the students are having conversations and they're rotating from table to table in that World Cafe atmosphere, so that you are provoking just discourse that is really pertinent to the data that you see, and you're getting the input of the kids in that particular situation, or parents or teachers, whatever the case may be, whichever group you're working with.
I think it'll have to be a multifaceted approach, just like anything. You can't say we did this one thing and that's it, we're done. I think it has to be a great variety of venues.
Right.
I still had another question. So because this is a requirement of the state, do they give you any comparative data to compare our results to districts similar in our size and our
They do
demographics?
not.
They do not?
They do not. It is simply a requirement of having the designation.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Carmen, I just have one question. At the top of the slides, it says hover over the chart for
Yep.
details.
Yep.
Mine's not working.
You have to use a mouse.
You have to use a mouse.
Yes,
Okay.
this is a particular
Okay.
program, and that's why I had to have this up here, not a clicker.
Got it. Okay, so then are those questions at the bottom of is that what would
Those
be?
are the questions that were specific to the stakeholder group on the screen.
Okay.
However, I printed them all and scanned them to you earlier this evening, so you have it all in one document,
Thank you.
and it's much easier to read it that way.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions?
I just have a question because again, I'm and my optometrist would be proud of me. I can read these questions up here barely, but it says like the school which line was it? At the school, how much of a problem is student alcohol use? And then it says very positive, 107. So does that mean that they're positive?
That means
kids aren't?
107 students felt that that was not an issue.
Not a thing, okay.
Correct. That's one of those negative
That's so
balance
difficult
questions.
to figure out.
It is, it's that whole data logic stuff.
That's it, I'll just email if I got more of those.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to go over any other questions you have any other time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carmen.
Okay, Dr. Cervoni. Dr. Cervoni will give us a presentation on our current class sizes and teacher loads.
Hi, thank you. So just a brief staffing update, did something like this last year, and I think it times well with our budget presentation. Staffing is an all year round process. Staff drives a lot of what we do in this industry for sure, and has the most significant impact on our budget. Was able to share with you what our priorities were for this current school year, as discussed and worked with our board last year, and outlined here our focus on small class sizes, elementary and Regents courses, trying to continue to offer AP and advanced opportunities for our students, technical and vocational opportunities, we've seen a great increase on that. As Will kind of shared in his budget presentation, there's a cost to it, but I think we've had some of the greatest participation in our vocational programming through Area 1 BOCES. AS opportunities was a huge focus. As you know, we have worked towards creating math labs at the middle school, having dedicated AIS people in our core areas at the high school. We also added AIS staff, reading teachers at our elementary buildings. The staffing process in this district has continued to grow and build towards collaboration and team effort, and making sure that we're using efficient use of our human resources. Being in this district for some time and serving as an assistant principal and principal, I remember the time where it was, for lack of a better term, much more cloak and dagger between buildings. And through our Power School system and through collaborative meetings, it is extremely transparent across all of our administrators, our teacher leaders, all take part in the process of evaluating and looking at our class sizes, our course enrollment, our staff counts, etc. And ultimately with the goal of offering a comprehensive educational opportunities for our students, educational program. As I said, it's a collaborative process, teacher coordinators, chairs, leaders. The staffing process will start soon, or has already started, but I will begin having meetings at each level with our elementary, middle, and high school principals, along with our curricular directors. We have had countless conversations among our central office team and working with Will as he prepares the budget over what are our priorities. And certainly it's a question for our board, what are our priorities? Do we still believe, and it seems that we still believe in a lot of these priorities that we enter this school year with, but certainly something for all of you to keep in mind. If there's something that you'll be thinking of or wanting, now is the time for us to build it into our budget and plan and prepare for those desires that might require additional staffing. Our Board of Education guidelines, and this is an old document because the numbers are still the same, but fifth grade's still in middle school, so it's still the same 26 to 29, but these are from a board guideline that, yes, was adopted, I believe, in 1995. I used to look at an old 1995 ditto sheet with that. I've since digitized it, but also put it in here. It kind of shows some general guidelines for our grades, K1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, and 9, 12. I think you will see in the subsequent slides that we are meeting all of these guidelines by a long shot. Here's our average elementary class sizes, and this was updated, I don't believe, when I sent you the presentation, so it might be a couple weeks old. I don't expect these numbers to change greatly. But you will see that compared to our guidelines, we have great, in my opinion, really strong average elementary class sizes in each one of our buildings. Certainly there are some bumps along. I see Westell with a large 4th and 5th grade. When we go through this process of determining section counts, we will do it in the coming weeks and months. Kindergarten, we kind of use the existing kindergarten as an estimate for what's to come. And then we continue to monitor that leading up right through into August and into September. And as we roll the students up, we look to see how many sections currently exist and should we make adjustments to those and what is the impact. And sometimes the math works out really good where, you can't have a class of 30, let's say, but that means you're going to have 215. Sometimes it doesn't work out so good when, you have 54, or let's say, and do we want 2 classes of 27, or do we want to go? So we go through this process and we meet several times, but I think overall, this is certainly a source of pride, I think it should be for our district that we've had a commitment to have class sizes extremely low at the elementary. There are 2 middle school slides in here, I apologize. The first one, ignore. The second one, which I'll turn to, is the numbers are a little bit lower. This is, hang on a second, no, that's not the 2 slides. That's coming up. West Middle, average class size at our middle schools in our core areas. Grade 6, I think we've talked a lot about grade 6, is busy. The grade 7 and 8, I think, are much more competitive, to use a term. The middle schools really are obviously developed by their team structure. So not a lot like in the high school and elementary where you're adding sections. We have these teams. If we're committed, which we have been to the team structure, that our class sizes are based upon how many teams we have.
John, yeah, I had a question about that because Why is that? Why is that the case? Why are there, at 7th grade, you have the number of sections you do? Let's see, so math at 7th grade at West, you have 13 sections, and class sizes are, well, they are what they are there.
This is the middle schools?
And even, yeah, in the 6th grade, where you come out with the average class size there, you still, and you have one that's really small at 13, you have classes hovering at 27, 28, 26 in 6th grade, and the highest in 7th grade is 18, with the lowest being 12. Is there a reason for that disparity, especially at a grade like 6th grade that's that large? I mean, that important? You're transitioning from elementary school to a middle school, and now you're swimming with 28 kids?
It really breaks down to the number of teachers that the students are broken out on in the team structure. So you're just looking at, like at West Middle School, for instance, I think they're still with 2 teams of 5, basically, that you're broken out between. Were we to be able to add another couple of teachers to that configuration, you would be able to break it out. But like in 7th and 8th grade, you have 3 teams of 5. It's 4 core area teachers plus a 5th one that adds to the wheel there. So you're breaking it out over essentially 15 people in the 7th and 8th grade, and you're breaking it out over 10 people. This is West Middle School in the 6th grade. So it's just you're not able to space the students out as much.
It's a space issue?
Yes, it is. Yeah, at West Middle School, that's one of the that's really the reason. If we could have added a couple of more teachers, we don't have the classroom space over there. So that's why you see the larger numbers. I think we have, last I checked, I want to say it was 2 teams of 5 in 6th grade, plus there was an AIS person there as well. So you look to try to add more. You don't have classrooms at West Middle. That's some of the spacing constraints that we've talked about. And that's where we get the tightness over West Middle's 6th grade.
On the east side, do they have 2 teams for grade 6? Do they use a team structure?
They also use a team structure on the
Okay.
east side, yes.
And they have 2 teams, okay.
Yeah, there's a big difference between 6th grade size there and 7th grade size. So 7th grade is way smaller than 6th grade. I just don't understand that.
2 teams in 6th grade at West Middle turns into 3 teams to be able to spread kids out between into 7th grade. So 6th to 7th, you're increasing the number of teachers, the places that the kids can go to for all their classes.
I think to your point, Vince, we should be looking for more space, and we should
Well,
consider
yeah, I
adding
think that
potentially
if I were
a team.
if I were going to have lower class sizes, it would be at 6th grade. I would prioritize my 6th grade over 7th and 8th grade class sizes. Kids that are coming from elementary school. and
Ms.
into
Persico,
school.
ex-middle school principal?
I think it's the number of the students in the entering class. Grade 6 has traditionally been over the past few years the biggest class. And so you have teams of teachers, which are the 4 core areas. In the 6th grade, they have the addition of a reading teacher, so that's divided by 5, as opposed to on the east side of town where they have 4 teachers at the 6th grade level per team. So it's 8 and 10 on each respective side of town. It does depend. Some years your numbers fluctuate of entering classes, so that makes the class size also fluctuate. So if you have a bigger class, you have more students in the class. If you have a smaller class incoming, then your class sizes are smaller. This is just an average number that typically occurs.
Okay.
You see the same trend here, though, Vince, to your point, and I think worthy of conversation with our middle school principals this year, is we're seeing the largest class sizes in our 6th grade.
Yeah.
And why is that? Is there something that we could do potentially? Should we consider adding staff there, creating an additional team, or, making some adjustment in 7th and 8th grade?
I have another question. Is the 6th grade wing smaller than the 7th and 8th grade wing? Because why are there less, why is there no room?
So it's spread out between 10 classroom teachers in the 6th grade wing over at West Middle School, and in the 7th and 8th grade wings, they do have 12 classroom teachers plus art, plus like family consumer sciences, health. Actually, no, health is actually on a card over at West Middle School, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, I have a 6th grader and an 8th grader, so.
So
He
is
does
the-
have big class sizes,
In
but.
6th grade?
Yes.
I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. So next year, the numbers stay similar if nothing changes, or is the actual current 6th grade group larger
Yes.
than our 7th grade group right now, or 8th grade group.
I don't have that enrollment data on me now, but I believe the sixth grade is a large class.
They look to be about the same.
Yeah.
The incoming,
Oh, they do?
They look to be about
It's on
the
the
same.
sheet.
Same size.
Okay.
moving on to East Middle, again, I think you see larger class sizes in sixth grade. I don't know if these are as daunting as maybe the sixth grade classes on the west side. Certainly seventh and eighth grade numbers are really good. Average class size is below 20 across the board in our core areas. High school is the one where there's two class sizes. There's a light green and a second one, so I'll skip the first one. I apologize. I'm not sure why that slide was in there. That was last year's numbers, I believe. Average high school core class size for East and West Senior. Again, you can see here in our core areas now, I think, Vince, you were pointing out to, I linked some data, some spreadsheets with a ton of information in there. And it can be overwhelming at first. There's tabs along the bottom, but I think it's sorted and organized in a way that's relatively digestible. It might take some time to read through those, but as you come up with questions or see some anomaly, please give me a call or shoot me an email. I'm happy to kind of walk through that and explain that to you. But hopefully what you see here is we have really good class sizes in both high schools, in our core areas and in our elective areas. I think one important thing that we will consider, and it's important for the board, as Mr. Thiel mentioned, we had almost 2019 retirements. So anytime we have a retirement from the district in any position, we will evaluate the need for that position. We have, our ARP numbers is how many positions, Mr. Thiel? In ARP?
We have 53 positions.
So we have 53 positions that are in a grant fund that will expire next year. So those will be, as we look at our retirements, we will consider not replacing all of them and determining which ones may, for example, if we have, we may have several retirements in a specific content area, and we will evaluate each one of those and look at the impact. If we don't replace one of those teachers, what does that do to our class sizes, and what impact does that make on them? And I still believe that this board and our district has a focus on lower class sizes, but in some cases, the elimination or not filling one position might mean the difference between an average class size of 18 to an average class size of 20, which I still think for high school is pretty good.
Or moving someone out of AIS. How many AIS teachers do we have?
Currently, we have a full-time person AIS dedicated in every core area. Math and ELA, we have equivalent to or a full-time person in both high schools in AIS.
And total people hired. I saw that in the budget there was 5.3 that are coming out of
that might not just be high school.
grants, but how many do we have just like?
I could have to give you that total number.
AIS?
I can send you that tomorrow of how many total people we have in AIS. We certainly made a commitment this year. It used to be piecemeal, and where if you had a free period, we would put you in AIS. Megan's kind of nodding her head. We've now made a commitment that we want to make sure that there are core teachers in those core areas there all the time for students for additional remedial support. Obviously, in the middle school, we did kind of that. We did it in the form of a math lab, but.
At the high school level, how many classes does an average teacher have? So in a week, how many different
5.
classes do you see?
Oh, in a week?
Well,
They might be assigned 5 sections.
Because I know you've got, with the double periods, so.
Correct. So there's 4 blocks in a day, and I would say a normal schedule would be teaching 3 blocks and having a planning block. There might be some instances where I teach 2 classes a day and have a study hall to manage some of the building needs. There could be some where I have 3 one day, 2 the next day with a duty, or 3 every single day.
So every 2
The most they
days
can have is
they teach 5.
6 assignments out of 8.
Oh.
I think the goal is to have 5 plus some sort of building duty, which could be a hall duty, could be cafeteria duty, could be study hall. I would argue that most of our teachers are teaching 5 to 6. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . Just a thanks to a lot of people that are involved in this process, working collaboratively and will for the next several months, but even pulling some of this data. Jay Brinker has been involved in his role. I've met with all the high school and elementary principals along with the district directors on this, and this data is shared with them, and they are able to analyze it and review it as well. Spring staffing, as I mentioned, what are our district and Board of Ed priorities? Things for us to consider. We have been having a lot of conversations as a central office team about that. Fiscal mindedness, making sure that we're making the smart decisions with our staff. That's why we analyze every single retirement that comes our way. I know there's been a lot of chatter about class offerings and how can we increase them. So in talking with Mrs. Persico and committing some time between now and, let's say, Christmas, of examining start at the high school, examining every one of our core areas and all the courses that are offered, and make decisions, are all these the best choices? Some are required. Some we have opportunities to change or tweak. For example, all the APs that we offer, some we don't offer some APs. We want to consider adding some of them. We have articulation agreements with a lot of different colleges and universities. And even some of the elective areas in all of our core areas and even our elective areas. So I know that this is something that's been a commitment and focus of this board, and how do we add electives, maybe without not necessarily having to drive a bunch of new teachers. Some might require new teachers, but maybe we need to update and refresh our course offerings.
Yeah.
Any questions for me?
No, I think I saw your last bullet point was student interest. I think with your meetings with students, ask them what they're interested in. They have given us feedback that they love financial literacy. They were asking for that. And, I had asked for more writing focused classes rather than reading comprehension focused classes. So that was just something, but I really think that this really needs to be look at to other school districts. Orchard Park offers a class in home improvement. If anyone would care to look at the curriculum for that, it sounded really interesting. So I just think looking out to other districts and seeing what our students are interested in would be really helpful moving this district forward.
We actually, and some of this is the curricular shared decision-making team we're looking to get off the ground, I think would come through that. We have some survey questions too that Carmen and I have been looking at as well. And also to John's point, maybe, to some degree, unless you're looking to add a significant number of teachers, sometimes it's just repurposing what are you teaching or tweaking the curriculum associated with a particular course area.
Right.
So I think if you say, we're offering this right now, our enrollment has been historically low in this, for instance, or based on some feedback that we've received, it looks as though somebody would rather us maybe move in this direction with it. So, making use of the resources that we currently have, I think would probably be a good starting
And I
point.
think it's even beyond enrollment, because if students only have certain choices, then they're just going to end up in certain classes, and that doesn't mean that they're there because they want to be there, they're because there aren't other options. So the student interest is huge, staying current, what I love is what we've done with BOCES. We've increased the number of opportunities for our students to go to BOCES. What I would love to see even more of now are students that don't want to go full BOCES, but also want to have opportunities to learn skills, small engine repair, some electricity and things like that are not ready to go. They don't want to give up their AP classes, but they would like to learn how to fix an engine. So that might, those are classes that we could definitely try to give more opportunity for kids.
And I will say, I know Mr. Merkel's back here, and in my time here, and recently, our elective areas, technology, business, they have made it a point to reflect and look at what type of course offerings they do. I know our technology, we used to be highly invested in Project Lead the Way, and what our technology teachers identified, we have a pre-engineering coursework, we're not Project Lead the Way certified, but there was a desire and an identified need of materials processing. How do we bring students back into using some of the equipment in our wood shops, in our technology? And that was something that we really got away from for some time.
But my question with that is, can you take those courses if you're not in an academy?
You can.
Okay.
You can. And we have made it a point in any academy course to offer those, should there be room, and many there, to offer those to outside students.
That's been a little bit of a shift as well over the past several years, is that we really tried to open those up to others. So.
Yeah.
But
Last comment on these clearly, there's an indication here by some of these class sizes that we need to redistrict. I don't know if everyone knows that or not, but we need to redistrict.
Yes.
So I think we need to keep talking about that and keep that at the front of conversations, because when you have an average class size in fourth grade at 18 at one school and 27 at another, that's not a blip.
Yeah, you're singing my song here, Vince. That's the
Well, I think
conversation.
we just need to keep
Yeah.
keeping that at the forefront of all this, work that's going on with that, so people don't lose, like, why are we doing this again? What are we doing about that?
And I can just add to your point, I guess, I can think of examples of situations over the past few years where we've seen like an elementary class size, like a fifth grade or something, kind of pop at one of our grade schools. And I remember one specific instance at one of our elementaries where we literally said we're not going to be able to add a section due to space constraints. We ended up adding a teacher that kind of came in and pushed in to break down the class sizes a little bit. So it's just more I guess, more to add to your
Saying
point.
that it has to be 27 and 28 kids in a sixth grade class because there's not space, that's a problem.
I'd be interested in I don't know the proper breakdown on this, but, and I'm very confident that my kid's not watching this board meeting, but she's like never in school. She's a senior. She's not taking electives because she's allowed to leave. Like, I think there's one day where she's home, I'm like, why even going? Like, you're wasting your time waking up and going. Am I right? There's a lot of kids who,
Yeah, there's a lot of kids who, they have early dismissal, they stay for 2 blocks and then go home, they stay for a block, they come in 2 blocks late. But
And I'm-
that's just what they choose to
and
do
I'm not,
their senior year.
obviously as a parent, I can make her take more classes, I'm not going to. But, I'm just saying, like, we have offerings and their kids may not be taking them because they'd rather leave. I'd be curious, do we ever look at the numbers of the amount of kids that aren't here for a full, like, is there, and talk to them? And say, obviously my daughter, she likes to work a part-time job, but that's only 2 or 3 times a week and it's not till the evening. So is she leaving because she's just allowed to, or is there nothing she wants to take?
Parents have to consent to the early dismissals and late
Yes, they
arrivals,
do.
to your point, so.
Yes, they do, and I'm
Put
not
that out
interested
there.
in unconsenting.
Yeah.
But she doesn't obviously need to be there and she doesn't want to be there. She's a good student.
Coming out of COVID, I will say, because with COVID, to be quite honest with you, we were not encouraging, but there were more early dismissals and late arrivals, just trying to reduce density. So coming out of that, we do want to see kids. We want to see your daughter in school more. If you're watching, Caitlin, okay, we want to see you in school.
And again, I'll give her kudos, she's actually taken my twins to their basketball class, thanks to Stephanie getting them taken care of and signed up at one of the other elementary schools, which is great. But I'm not saying that do we talk to these kids?
I think that's the hope, is to talk to the kids
Yeah.
and get their feedback.
I think it's interesting that our district is not growing. Our district is getting smaller, and Lancaster has beat us. I saw in the last, notice that was sent out of the populations. Now Lancaster is bigger than we are by 25 kids. We're not growing with Seneca,
No, we're not, so we shouldn't have a huge 6th grade. Just my
It was an
opinion.
interesting, the last population thing that was sent out.
Good point. Any other
Sorry
questions?
to
for
see
John?
that.
I'd be
There's
curious
always
in
a
those
crowd.
numbers, how many kids leave and how long are they there?
We can pull those numbers.
Not to give you work to do, but I'd be curious.
It's not difficult to pull that
Well, the
information.
town population is shrinking.
Sorry.
People are moving to the sunny south, and I don't blame them.
Yes. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
There's something in the water that year.
Yeah.
Because there's not.
What year would that have been?
2012?
2012?
What year would it have been that made 6th grade so big? What were you guys doing?
Yeah, what was it?
What happened?
Liz, what year was your 6th grader born?
2011.
2011. What was going on in 2011?
No, we don't have more sixth graders than seventh graders. We're splitting them.
Hey, Bob.
All right, we're at the point where we can have some board discussion. So,
I think we already started.
you're free to leave though, Megan, if you want to. Yeah.
We started a board discussion.
Do you need it signed?
Yeah.
Okay.
If one of you
From
could.
who? Yeah. Give it to Diane, she's closest.
She's close to the door.
Or Lean and give it to
Thank you
Diane.
for being here, Megan.
Thank you, Megan.
Have a good night.
I always like how you represent the students and ask a couple questions. It's good.
Are you a senior this year?
Yeah.
So,
Anything else?
are you going away, or are you staying local, or do you know
I'm
yet?
going away, but I don't know where yet.
Okay.
I'm just waiting on financial packages.
Okay. I was just curious.
Meredith's doing that too.
I heard that Caitlin is committed.
Yes,
Yeah, that's
Yes.
exciting.
very, very proud of her.
Thank you.
But
Thank you, Megan.
Thanks, Megan.
it's nice having you part of the board.
Yep.
I was trying to get you to run. Go to college. Throw your life away.
You're not going on a softball scholarship?
Softball. That was a long time ago.
Swim.
All right, everyone, I gotta wrangle you back in. We need to talk about some things, board discussion. I have just one thing on there as a bullet point, the athletic, actually, it's the academic eligibility policy that was given to us for a possible update or change. So, I think it's all in our folders. Nicole was nice enough to print it out. I just wanted to have everybody in the room to have this discussion. So I am comfortable with these changes. I think they're needed, they're helpful. My son was put on probation for missing phys ed, for 2 classes of phys ed, and then his grade went down significantly, so then he was put on probation, and he was simply absent. So I feel like this policy is useful for, in that instance, and many other instances where, you know, it's really nice to have the child still participate in the activity, but they can't, you know, attend the contests like the games and stuff. So I just wanted everyone to have an opportunity to look at it, ask questions, and then Mr. Bystrick can take it over and make sure it's cleaned up. And so does anyone have any questions about that? I know, Diane, you did, but I think it
Yeah,
makes
but I
sense
couldn't
now.
answer it.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's great.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think it's a really good solution for a small population of kids that, you know, could really use a little extra, I don't know, push.
It's about
to-
motivation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It
right.
really is about motivation. I think that when you remove them from a good group of, support group around them,
Yeah.
which is a team, you're giving them more opportunity to fail.
Yeah.
So
And this still holds
Keeping
them
them-
accountable.
But
keeping them practicing, making them work, contributing to the team while also having to, if you want to play, you got to get the grade.
Yeah,
I think that is the
a good
best
incentive.
combination that we could offer.
and I like how the teacher has to sign off on it.
Yep.
It's a good,
Accountability.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I mean, because I can see if you're out of the sport totally, you might get relaxed and find the
Yes.
fact that video games are more fun, or
Well, you give up,
Or-
right?
Yeah.
You give up.
It takes a lot of your
I
time.
like the whole idea to keep them.
Yeah, make them work their way out of it. I mean,
And this
that's, and have positive peer pressure around them and support to get your act together.
Yeah.
Now, I've mostly heard this with sports, like, you know, you have to, I don't know, attend, you know, different things. And I heard you say this applies to more than just sports.
It's
Musicals,
extracurriculars,
band.
yeah.
So how does that work when it's let's say a musical? I mean, okay, you
There's
can-
fewer performances, obviously.
Right, there's like, I'm just saying, is it, do we find that it fits in all these categories, the policy?
It's
where
applicable.
clubs
Yeah,
and-
it's applicable. It absolutely is. I mean, you have to look at, you know, from the standpoint of, you know, what's considered a contest. I think the biggest issue is you've got a group of kids, Molly's has a small group of kids that have basically made a connection to, you know, a positive adult in the school, and now you're pulling away that connection for, you know, at least a couple of weeks. You know, there's still accountability. You'd said before, they still have to check in with the teacher every day. You know, and if they're not toeing the line, then the teacher's going to say to them, okay, you're not following along with this. So I know some teachers that, you know, really like coaches that, I mean, they're on it. They're reaching out to teachers and encouraging. If a kid's not participating, even by the current policy, there are coaches in this district that are contacting teachers, contacting kids saying, I need you on the field. You're hurting us not being here. I mean, people take this seriously. And I honestly, I think, I'm glad to hear all the support, because I think this is a positive step for us. I think, you know, we talk about trying to create a sense of engagement. I think this is a big step toward that, so.
Okay, good, then we'll move forward with it. Is there anything else any board members would like to discuss? Anything else you'd like to share?
This bus thing, and again, it's just me, it's like this, it is so dumb. Like, are we hearing anything about school boards, school districts? And again, people here may disagree with me, and I may be the odd man out, but it seems to me like this is gonna cost like 30, 40 million dollars just to like make this happen, and then these buses don't even have heaters. Like they're heated off of like gas, diesel, because the electric doesn't heat the buses. Like the whole thing, I feel like I'm in like some sort of weird thing. Have we heard anything about other districts banding together and saying, look, slow down on this, or?
Erie County School Board Association, it's one of the main issues that they're coming together to, speak to our legislators and everything about it. It just has to be, it was kind of short-sighted,
They literally have carts so far above from the
Exactly.
horse.
There's no way
It's-
we can do
You
this.
don't have, they need to build capacity before they start dictating which type of appliances or
And
different
how
vehicles are
we
gonna have
fund
to be.
these.
Yeah,
Like
it's not there.
It's a huge problem.
The science isn't there yet, they're just way in front of the horse.
But yeah, Erie
Such a
County School Board's
political,
doing that.
it's just a political,
Yeah.
And you're missing the State of the Union.
Just so again,
I'm not missing.
That's not a little political.
Pay for it.
if theoretically, if this board majority was against, like, or in favor of helping out, or chipping, I'm definitely interested in, if you hear of a rally or if you hear of a meeting, I just think this is crazy.
I think right now it's just like a letter campaign, and they're encouraging, Erie County School Board is encouraging school boards to meet with, like Patrick Burke, for example, to sit down and just explain how we're just not in a position to, to move forward with this in the capacity that it's laid out.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll let you know if I see anything come through.
Yeah, now I see those guys a lot.
But
since we have New York State on the table, can I ask, has there been any further updates on mascots or school name?
Oh, it's got to go.
Yeah, as of this point, so Councilman Contafio actually is, apparently there's a potential for conversation. The conversation is really just the impact. I know that there was some folks over at West Senior that were just interested potentially in maybe commemorating the history of West Seneca. It's really not so much about keeping a mascot or anything like that, or an imagery or anything like that. I think it's just there's an opportunity for us to have some dialogue with the Seneca Nation. So Councilman Contafio had indicated that he would get back to us on that. I'd be very interested in, at the very least, hearing the impacts, but I know that Coach Vastula had a specific plan, an idea, a way to be able to honor Red Jacket, obviously, who was, from West Seneca. So again, it's an opportunity. Apparently, they're not having these conversations with a lot of school districts in the area, but they said that there would be some possibility of us to be able to sit and have this dialogue. So I wouldn't want to pass up the opportunity.
We can't confuse that with what we are required to do by the state. Like, that we cannot keep our mascot. That has to be
I wouldn't
clear
think so
here.
as of this point, but the State Education Department has to put out the regulations as for the approval process. Molly, my understanding is exactly what you're saying, is that you don't really have, it had to be a pre-existing agreement that you had with, a Native American tribe in order to be able to maintain the mascot, but we haven't seen the specific, regulations to come out to say how. They just say that you were supposed to have this, so at the end of the day, I don't know how we would maintain it, but, frankly, I will say as far as actual imagery, there's not a whole lot of imagery around the district. There's some, there absolutely is. Some of our uniforms are on a replacement cycle. By the end of this year, what we have to do is commit. And I'm not even sure what that means officially, to be honest with you, but we have to commit to say we will be phasing this out. Some districts are in a different circumstance where like the gym floor or like their football field or turf field has, a large piece of imagery, or it's all over the school, or all of their uniforms have it. We're not in that particular situation, so.
Yeah, I guess that's something that we really have to consider too, how we move forward. How are we picking a new mascot? Are we going to pick a new mascot? Who's going to be, leading that conversation? Hopefully, again, it's the kids.
Oh, yeah, absolutely,
but
yeah.
It's a done deal.
Well,
I just read it from
they've already
Commissioner
voted.
Rosa. Like, it came out in our NYSIBA publication today. Like, it's done.
They held an informal vote the other day.
It's done.
But why would
It's
you
already done.
rename the mascot before you finish the redistricting? Right?
Yeah, I don't know as of
Why
this
why
point.
redo things 10 times over
Yeah,
again?
Yeah.
that's a good point.
How many times do you want to buy the sign,
Right.
Yeah.
Good
or
point.
or whatever it is?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can be like the Washington football team for a little bit.
Yeah, just a W and an E.
I mean, they didn't come up with a great name at the end, so,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Yep, I agree. And to Matt's point, you know, the bleed blue and the W on the west side of town is just, it's on everything. So there is no strong imagery.
Not anymore.
No, I think
Most
there's
of
the,
the uniforms just say West on them. too.
most of them do. There's still some that, and there's a cycle, there's a plan to replace all of them. There's not a lot, but there's enough that we still have to continue to work to replace them. And also with the West Senior Gym, I guess it says Indians along the baseline, so I think we'd have to address that as well. But I don't think there's anything that's going to be, from the physical standpoint, there's really not going to be anything that's going to be too big of a hurdle to overcome on that, so.
What is the date that it needs to be decided
We just
by?
need to commit. We don't have to decide anything other than we just have to officially commit to say we are going to be moving away from this mascot by the end of the school year.
But what's the
So-
alternative anyway? Saying, no, we're not, come get us?
They will.
Funding.
Right?
Funding.
Yeah, no, I just mean,
Right.
we have to commit, but like, okay, you have to commit or, yeah.
State
so-
aid with, it can be withheld.
Yeah, yep. They can remove board members, superintendents, administrators, yeah, they can do all that, so. Yeah. Just honestly, I think the conversation, you know, it's something that I think just in good faith, just wanted to, hear it's an opportunity to hear the perspective, but I don't know how we would maintain the mascot, or I hate even calling it a mascot, to be honest with you, but yeah, I don't know how we even maintain that.
There's a lot of things that would go toe-to-toe with the state on, this is not one of them.
Yeah.
I second that.
Not worth playing.
All right, is there anything else anybody wants to talk about?
Well, I would have about 30 T-shirts and jackets if you want to buy them used.
They're going to be collector's items. Not true.
They'll be vintage.
Yeah, vintage.
Enough said.
All right, we have to move into executive session, so we will not be resuming business, so I would like to ask for a motion to move to executive session to discuss the employment history of particular individual and to discuss collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law.
I'll move.
And Jody seconds. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for
Have a good
coming.
night.
Have a good
Thanks, everyone.
night.